Dear students, let us continue on our module 2, which is on image enhancement. Today we are going to learn about the different filters and also the Fourier transform. Now we will go for the frequency domain filtering. So we are going to see some frequency domain methods and the discrete Fourier transform. Until now we have studied how we can go for modifying an image by using the individual approach. Everything individually, separate. Now we will see how we can combine them, because several applications are going to require a combination of multiple complementary techniques. When I am going to use the multiple complementary techniques, I am going to get a very effective result. So here we are going to illustrate by means of an example how to combine several of the approaches developed up till now. We have seen several Laplacian and several other filterings, like we are having the gradient filters, Sobel filters and all these things. Now we are going to see how we can combine them to get a better image enhancement. The image in A, it is a whole body scan which is used to detect diseases such as the bone infection and tumors. Our object here, it is to enhance this image by sharpening it and by bringing out more of a skeletal detail. The narrow dynamic range of the intensity levels and high noise content make this image difficult to enhance. So by using this drawback, we have to make sure that the image will be enhanced. So what strategy we are going to apply? Here we are going to make use of Laplacians to highlight the fine details and the gradients to enhance the prominent edges. So we'll see how we can apply different type of techniques and bring out the image better, though that image is not very good one. The figure B, it shows the Laplacian of the original image. So after applying the filter, applying the Laplacian filter, I am going to get this image. This image, it is scaled by using the same technique as in figure C. That means the previous equation C. But we are going to obtain a sharpened image at this, because we are going to add the A and B according to the equation 3.6.7 what we have just learned for the Laplacian. So you can look at the noise level over here in the figure B. Though we were expecting a very noisy sharpened image, but after adding this A and B, we can see that the result in C, it is more better. So it is going to reduce the noise if you are going to use some filters. We could have used some filters like median filter or mean filter also. So but in the case of median or mean and what is going to happen, some image features are going to be removed, so which may not be very good output, which may not lead to very good output, and that's the reason why we're just making use of adding the 3.43A with B. So when you combine this one, I'm going to get it as C. Previously we had talked about the Sobel gradients. So the D here, the figure D here, it shows the Sobel gradient of the original image which is computed. So the Gx and the Gy, they will be obtained by making use of the masks in D and E respectively. So as usual, we know that the Sobel gradient will bring up the edges very significantly. So you can see that the edges are more dominant in this image than what it was done in the previous case. That means when I am using a Laplacian, that it was not very highlighting, but in this case we can see that the edges have become more dominant because of the Sobel mask. Now we will look at the next set of 4 images which are created by making use of the Sobel images and also by multiplying some images. Then we can also go for sharpening by adding 2 images, and finally we are also making use of the power law transformation. And then we are going to compare all these operations. The gradient image which has been smoothed in E was obtained by making use of a averaging filter of size 5x5. The two gradient images were scaled for the display in the same manner as the Laplacian image. Because the smallest possible value of a gradient image is 0, the background is black in the scaled gradient images rather than grey as in the scaled Laplacian. So you can see that the figures D and E, they are more bright than what is there in the figure B. Because of the gradient of an image, it is going to give out the significant edge content, and these significant edge contents, they have the values that are higher than what we would have got if I am going to make use of a Laplacian image. The next image F, it is a product of the Laplacian and the smoothed gradient image. So you can see that the dominance of the strong edges and the relative lack of the visible noise. So when you're going to combine both of this, we're going to get the advantage of course I'm going to get a strong edge, and also there will be less of noise. So that is the main aim when I'm going to combine this Laplacian with a smoothed gradient image. When I'm going to add the image to the original image, then I'm going to get a sharpened image what is shown in G. That means after multiplying the Laplacian and the smoothed gradient, what I'm going to get, that I'm going to add with the original image. I'm going to get it as G. Here you can observe the sharpness of the image has been increased over multiple details. So you can see the ribs, the spinal cord, pelvis, skull, in all the places the image has become more sharp. This type of improvement, it could not have been possible only by making use of the Laplacian and the gradient alone. So in this way we can see that when you're going to combine multiple methods, you're going to get an image which can be better than what could be got only by using a single method. When we think of going for still more sharpening the image, we can think of several procedures. But here we are going to consider the power law transformation, because we are going to spread the intensity level. So after a few trials, okay, this equation was obtained, and then we are getting the result as figure H, where the gamma value is equal to 0.5 and C is equal to 1. So when you compare this image with the previous image, that is a G, we can see that the new details are more visible. The areas on the wrists, hands, ankles and feet, they are very much more pronounced. And also you can see the bone structure is also more better. We can look at this by looking at the we can conclude this by looking at the arm and the leg bones. Note also, we can also look at the definition of the outline of the body and the body tissue. So we can bring out much more detail of this one by expanding the dynamic range of the intensity level. Also we can bring down the noise and we can go for better visual improvement over the original image. What we're discussing here is how by making use of different type of processes we can go for achieving the desired result, which we could not have achieved only by using a single technique. So it depends upon the application, how we are going to combine the images and get the result. So you can see that the radiologist or any doctor, so he is not going to depend only on one type of diagnosis. To come to the conclusion of the diagnosis, we are going to combine different techniques, and then we are going to conclude about the problem. However, when we are going to combine the images and we are going to highlight several details about that than the original image, we are going to see here by combining the images we are going to get a better image. This particular image can be a standalone image, or it can be sequence of image which can lead to another set of transformations. So we can see that we are going to get the enhanced result when we are going to combine multiple processes. So examples of this are in multiple areas like printing industry, product inspections, forensics, in microscopy, in surveillance, and other host of areas which are related to these applications. Of course, the principal objective of this enhancement, it is for obtaining an image with a higher content of the visual detail. We should get a better result when we are going to combine the multiple type of techniques. So in this way we are going to combine the enhancement methods. It may be Laplacian or it may be a gradient. So we can go for combining and get a better result. Now we go for filtering in the frequency domain. The Fourier transform and the frequency domain, it can be used for image filtering. So if we can develop a solid understanding of this topic, then we can go for developing several image filters. So here we are going to see the fundamentals of the Fourier transform and the relevance to the digital image processing. So we are going to see that the Fourier transform, it is having its impact on countless branches of mathematics, science and engineering. Next we are going to see how the basic principles of the function sampling, and we are seeing the step-by-step samples of the frequency domain processing. All this started with a person called as Jean-Baptiste Joseph Fourier, on whom this Fourier transform is based. According to Fourier, so any function, if it is periodic and it is going to satisfy some mathematical functions, it can be expressed as a sum of small sines and cosines. And these sines and cosines, it can be of different frequencies and they can be multiplied by a different coefficient. So one periodic function is a combination of multiple sum of sines or cosines. It can be AND or it can be OR. So small equations put together, we are going to get a periodic function. So no matter how complicated this particular function is, but if it is periodic, then it will be definitely satisfying the condition of it is a sum of the sines and cosines. Even if the functions are not periodic, but that curve will be having some finite values, then also it can be expressed as an integral of the sines and cosines, which will be multiplied by a weighing function. So this is called as a Fourier transform, and its utility is greater than the Fourier series. Both representations, either the Fourier transform or the Fourier series, they are going to share the important characteristics that a function expressed in either a Fourier series or a Fourier transform can be reconstructed completely without any loss of information by making use of the inverse process. This is one of the most important characteristics of this representation because it is going to allow to us to work in the Fourier domain, and then again we can go back to the original domain of the function without losing any information. So ultimately it was the utility of the Fourier series and the Fourier transform for solving practical problems that made it widely used for studying it as a fundamental tool in image processing and mathematics. Here we can have a look at the discrete Fourier transform, that is a DFT for a 2 dimensions. So it is given by a function f of ub. This function f of ub, it depends upon f of xy, where f of xy is a digital image of size m cross n. And then we have to evaluate the values for the discrete variables u and v. The values for the u and the v, they are lying in the range. For u it is equal to 0 to m minus 1, and for v it is from 0 to n minus 1. So given the transformation f of uv, we can obtain the f of xy. Both of them can be obtained from each other. From f of ub you can get f of xy. From f of xy you can get f of uv. So this f of xy, it is called as the inverse discrete Fourier transform. So f of xy will be equal to 1 by mn and then f of uv. For all the values of x which are between 0 to m minus 1, and y will be equal to from 0 to n minus 1. So the equation of f of uv and the equation of f of xy, they are going to constitute a two-dimensional discrete Fourier transform pair. The rest of the chapter we are going to see based on the properties of these two equations. We can go for using them in the image filtering, that is the image filtering in the frequency domain. In this picture we can see the image spectrum for a given original image. So the image what is here, the centered spectrum what we have, for that I am going to get, after applying the DFT, I am going to get the result which is going to show the increased detail after applying a log transformation. So you can see here the zero crossings of the spectrum are closer in the vertical direction because the rectangle, the original rectangle was longer in that direction. So in whichever direction the original rectangle will be longer, in the same way I am going to get the output also. Consider the image over here, which is a scanning electron microscope image of a integrated circuit, which is magnified approximately 2500 times. Aside from the interesting construction of the device itself, we know that two principal features, strong edges that run approximately at plus or minus 45 degree, and two white oxide protrusions resulting from thermally induced failure. There was some error, and this is seen over here. When we are doing the IC chip, some extra things have been added. The Fourier spectrum, it is going to show the prominent components along the plus or minus 45 degree directions that correspond to the edges just mentioned. So when we look carefully along the vertical axis, we see a vertical component that is slightly to the left and is not exactly on the axis. This component was caused by the edges of the oxide protrusions. So we must also note that how the angle of the frequency component with respect to the vertical axis, which is corresponding to the inclination of the long white element, and also the zeros in the vertical frequency component, which is corresponding to the narrow vertical span of the oxide protrusions. All this effect is produced after I am going to apply my Fourier transform. So these are the typical types of associations that can be made in general between the frequency and the spatial domain. Now we will see some other types of the domains. This is how we are going to apply the DFT for image processing. We take an input image which is f of xy, and then I am going to apply a Fourier transform which is f of uv. After multiplying this f of uv with h of uv, the h of uv is a filtering function. Then I am going to inverse that Fourier transform. Apply the post-processing methods for the image, and I am going to get an enhanced image. So if I am going for filtering an image in the frequency domain, these are the steps what I have to follow. The three steps what I am going to follow. Low frequencies in the transform are related to slowly varying intensity components in an image, such as the walls of a room or a cloudless sky in the outdoor scene. So what happens over here? The intensity will be slowly varying. That means there will be almost same intensity. So in that case we can go for low frequency in the transform. On the other hand, high frequencies are caused by sharp transitions in the intensities, such as edges and noise. So after the edge, definitely there will be a change. So that is why it is called as a high frequency. So in this image, we are going to see how we can go for applying a filter which is going to attenuate the high frequency while passing through low frequencies. That means we can apply a low pass filter or a high pass filter. So if you pass a low pass filter, then it is going to blur an image. So if you are going to use a high pass filter, it is going to enhance the sharp details. But in the high pass filter, it is going to give a reduction in contrast in the image. So in this picture you can see these effects. So we can see that when we are using a high pass filter, it is going to eliminate the DC term, and it is going to result in the effect which is going to be seen over here. And if I am going to add some small constant amount to the filter, which is not affecting our sharpening appreciably, but it is going to prevent elimination of the DC term, and it is going to preserve the tone. That means it is going to preserve the tonality of the final image. So we can make use of the certain different frequency domain filters like low frequency or the high frequency to see the output of a image. Now we will see how we can go for image smoothing using a frequency domain filters. So we are going to begin with some low pass filters. The edges and other sharp intensity transitions in an image, they are going to contribute significantly to the high frequency content of the Fourier transform. Therefore, smoothing is achieved in the frequency domain by high frequency attenuation. That means we can go for low pass filtering. So we are going to see several types of filters like the ideal filter, Butterworth filter and the Gaussian filter. They are going to cover the range of the very sharp details to very smooth filtering. So a function, a smoothing function for a filtering, it will be of the form g of uv is equal to huv into f of uv, where f of uv is the Fourier transform of the image and h of uv is the filter transform. After applying this, I am going to get a image which will be equal to g of uv. So this is an ideal low pass filter. A 2D low pass filter which is going to pass without attenuation all the frequencies within a circle of the radius d0 from the origin, and it is going to cut off all the frequencies outside the circle. So that type of a filter is called as a ideal low pass filter. This ideal low pass filter is obtained by making use of the function h of uv is equal to 1 if d of uv is less than or equal to d0, h of uv is equal to 0 if d of uv is greater than or equal to d0, where d0 is a positive constant and d of uv is the distance between a point uv in the frequency domain and the center of the frequency rectangle. So you can see that the duv is given by d of uv will be equal to, it depends upon the m and the n, where this m and n, so m will be greater than or equal to the number of rows minus 1 and q will be number of columns minus 1. So we are going to have the m and n as the padded images. These images will be of size m cross n. This image over here, that is A, it is going to show the perspective plot of h of uv, and in B I have the filter displayed as an image. So the ideal filter, as indicated, it makes sure that all the frequency on or inside a circle of the radius d0, they are allowed to pass without any attenuation, whereas all the frequencies outside the circle are completely attenuated. That means they will not be allowed, they will be filtered out. The ideal low pass filter is radially symmetric about the origin, which means that the filter is completely defined by a radical cross section as shown in the figure C. So rotating the cross section by 360 degree, it is going to yield the filter in the 2-dimension scaling. For this cross section, the point of transition between h of uv is equal to 1, h of uv is equal to 0, it is called as the cutoff frequency. So here the cutoff frequency is equal to D naught. The sharp cutoff frequencies in a transformation cannot be realized with electronic components, but they can be simulated by using a computer. So the effect of using these non-physical filters on a digital image that we are going to discuss later. So we are going to make use of the low pass filters here for comparing how they are going to behave as a function and how we can see that the cutoff frequencies are going to work. This figure here, it shows a test pattern image and its corresponding spectrum. So the circles are superimposed on the spectrum here, and these circles are having the radius as 5, 15, 30, 80 and 230. These circles are enclosed for some alpha value percentage of the image power. So after a certain value it is going to fall off. Here the relatively small circle of the radius 10 it is going to start, and the total power will be enclosed within this radius 10 only. So we have A which is a test pattern. The figure A is a test pattern and the figure B is its Fourier spectrum. So the spectrum is very big, but here we are going to reduce that one so that it will be visible within the range. This figure over here, it is going to show the result of applying the ideal low pass filter with cutoff frequencies as shown in the B. So we are going to start from the radius as 5, then 15, then 30, then 80, then 230. So you can see here when we are going from image to image, it is going to be improved. So first we will see the B. So in this case it is blurring. There is a blurring so that all the details in the image have become blurred. This particular picture, it is not very helpful. But when we go for the radius increasing, you can see that less and less power is removed, and which is going to result in less blurring. So that can be obtained from C, D and E. But the C, D and E were characterized by one property which is called as a ringing. That means it will become finer in texture as the amount of the high frequency content is going to be removed. So ringing, when we have only 2% of the total power was removed, we can see that we are going to get a very good image. So finally for 99.2, the alpha value, we can see that very slight blurring is there and the image is very close to the original. So it is clear from this example that the ideal low pass filtering is not very practical, but it is useful to study their behavior as part of our development for the filtering concepts. Now we will see the another filter which is called as the Butterworth low pass filter. This filter is of order n and which is having a cutoff frequency at a distance d naught from the origin. The h of uv can be given in terms of d of uv, where this d of uv, it is taken from the ideal low pass filter, which depends upon the padded image p cross q. So this d of uv, it is taken from the ideal low pass filter. We can see also the graph here, which is having the perspective plot, the image display and the radial cross section of the Butterworth low pass filter. So in the A, you can observe the perspective plot of a Butterworth low pass filter transfer function. B, we have the filter displayed as an image, and C, I am going to have the filter radial cross section of the orders 1 to 4. Unlike the ideal low pass filter, the Butterworth low pass filter transfer function does not have a sharp discontinuity. So for the filters with smooth transfer functions, defining a cutoff frequency locus at the points for which the h of uv is down to a certain fraction of its maximum value, it is very customary. In this picture, we can see the results of applying the Butterworth low pass filter with n is equal to 2 and the d naught is equal to the 5 radius. Unlike the previous results, as in the ideal low pass filter, here we can observe there is a smooth transition in blurring as a function of increasing cutoff frequency. No ringing is visible in any of the image processed with this particular Butterworth low pass filter. This is attributed to the filter's smooth transition between the low and the high frequencies. So it is better than the ideal low pass filters. Here we can go for a transition from the high to the low or low to the high without much difference. So we are considering here for 5 radius, that is a radius of 5, radius of 15, radius of 30, radius of 80 and radius of 230, and you can see that the picture is becoming better and better when you are going for a Butterworth low pass filter. So the Butterworth low pass filter of the order 1 has no ringing in the spatial domain. So generally the ringing, it is going to come of the order 2, but it can become significant if it is going for a higher order. Now we see what is a Gaussian low pass filter. So the Gaussian low pass filter for a 2 dimension, it is given over here, that is h of ub, it depends upon d of ub. D of ub is the distance from the center of the frequency rectangle. Here we are not going to use a multiplying constant, but to be consistent with the filter, we are going to make use of one variable called as sigma. The sigma, it is a measure of the spread out about the center. So whenever the sigma is equal to d naught, we can express the filter by making use of the notation of the other filters, where we are going to replace the sigma with d naught, where d naught is the cutoff frequency. When the d of uv is equal to d naught, the Gaussian low pass filter, it will be down to 0.607 of its maximum value. So in the picture over here, we can see a perspective plot, a image display and the radial cross section of the Gaussian low pass filter function. So in the A, we can see the perspective plot of the Gaussian low pass filter function. In B, we have the filter display of a image, and in the C, we have the filter display radial cross section for various values of the d naught. So when the d naught is equal to 10, 20, 40 and 100. So you can make out here the 0.607, that will be the maximum value what we are going to get in the Gaussian low pass filter when we have these values. Now we will see the image sharpening by making use of the frequency domain filters. So because the edges and other abrupt changes in intensities are associated with high frequency components, image sharpening can be achieved in the frequency domain by making use of high pass filtering. So when we are using a high pass filtering, it is going to attenuate the low frequency components, but it is not going to disturb the high frequency information in the Fourier transform. So here we are going to have a ideal high pass filter. A 2-dimensional ideal high pass filter depends on d naught. The ideal high pass filter h of uv will be equal to 0 if d of uv is less than or equal to d naught, and it is equal to 1 if d of uv is greater than d naught. So here we are having the original image and the result of the ideal high pass filtering with respect to d naught equals 15, d naught equals 30 and d naught is equal to 80. So we can see that the image is getting better and better without any confusions. The clarity is becoming more clear when you go for increasing the distance. So the ideal high pass filter, it is used for removing the confusions. You can see here the filtering is becoming better, but it is going to allow only the high pass values, where D0 is the cutoff frequency and DUV is the distance from the center of the Fourier rectangle. So the ideal high pass filter, it is the opposite of the ideal low pass filter, what we have studied previously. That means here we are going to set to 0 all the frequencies inside the circle of radius D0 while passing without any attenuation, and all the frequencies outside the circles are attenuated. As in the case of the ideal low pass filter, the ideal high pass filter is also practically realizable. However, we are going to consider it for completeness, and therefore its properties can be used for explaining the phenomena such as ringing in the spatial domain, etc. The Butterworth high pass filter is also depending upon the D0 and the DUV. So this is also of the order n, and the cutoff frequency is the D0, where D of UV, it is a distance from the center of the rectangle, that is a Fourier rectangle. So here we can look at one particular image where we have the Butterworth's high pass filter represented. So we can see here the plot, the image representation, and the cross section of a typical Butterworth high pass filter. You can see that we are having the DUV and also the HUV. The HUV is obtained from the D of UV. As with the low pass filters, we can expect the Butterworth high pass filters to behave smoother than the ideal high pass filters. So we can see that the Butterworth filters are better than the previous filter. Here we can look at how a filter has been applied, that is the Butterworth high pass filter has been applied on an input image with the distance increasing. As the distance is increasing, we can see the result, how it has been obtained. Here we are going to consider the value of n is equal to 2, and we are going to vary the value of the D0. We can see that the boundaries are much less disturbed, unlike in the previous case. So we can see that when the D0 is equal to 30, 60 and 160 and whatever value we have, it is corresponding to the circles what we had previously. And these results what we are getting here, they are much more smoother than what we had got when we applied the ideal high pass filters. So the Butterworth high pass filters are better than the previous filters, as evident from the figure what is shown over here. Finally, we have the Gaussian high pass filter. The transfer function of the Gaussian high pass filter with cutoff frequency locus at a distance D0 from the center of the frequency rectangle, it is given by h of uv, which is depending upon d of uv, where d of uv, it is the distance. The expression is got by the previous filters. So here we can see that we also have an example for the Gaussian high pass filter. So in the Gaussian high pass filter, we can see how this h of uv can be obtained for different values of d of uv. This is the output what we are going to get for a Gaussian high pass filter. So for a Gaussian high pass filter, when I am going to apply the distance as 15, 30 and 80, the output image you can see here, it will be obtained like this. So the D0 30 is more better than the D0 is equal to 80. So for a certain values, this Gaussian high pass filter will be giving the perfect result. So the comparison between the spatial domain filtering and the frequency domain. We can see that the filtering in the spatial domain, it is easy to understand, but in the frequency domain the filtering will be more fast, and it is having the advantage also when we go for bigger images. The frequency domain will be much better than the spatial domain. So in the homomorphic filtering, the illumination reflectance model, it is going to be combined. They can be used to develop a frequency domain procedure, and this filter, it is going to improve the performance of an image by simultaneous intensity range compressions and contrast enhancements. So from the previous discussions, we know that the input image is considered as f of xy. It can be expressed as a product of the illumination, that is I of xy, and the reflectance r of xy components. That is f of xy will be equal to I of xy and r of xy. This equation cannot be used directly to operate on the frequency components of the illumination and the reflectance, because the Fourier transform is not the product of the transform. So we are going to convert that one to the Fourier transform, that is the illumination and the reflectance respectively, and then we are going for the natural algorithms, and then the output image can be processed. That is the concept of the homomorphic filtering. The steps in the homomorphic filtering are given here. This method is based on a special case of the system which is called as the homomorphic system. In this application, the key to this approach is the separation of the illumination and the reflective components. The homomorphic filter function h of uv, it can be operating on these components separately. The illumination component of an image generally is characterized by slow spatial variations, while the reflectance components tend to vary abruptly, particularly at the junction of the dissimilar objects. These characteristics are going to lead to associating the low frequencies of the Fourier transform of the logarithm of the image with illumination and the high frequency with the reflectance. Although these approximations are very rough, they can be used to advantage in image filtering. So we can go for a great deal of control in the case of the illumination and the reflective components when in the homomorphic filtering. So here we have the steps. In the first step, we are going for the logarithm, then the discrete Fourier transform, then we have the homomorphic filter, that is h of uv, then the inverse discrete Fourier transform. Finally, we have to go for applying the exponent, and I am going to get my g of xy. F of xy is the input image and g of xy is the output image, what we are going to get in the homomorphic filtering. Okay, that's all for today. We will continue in the next class. Thank you very much.